For centuries, China was world's economic center. They invented gunpowder, the compass, and paper money. Chinese expeditions reached Africa before Columbus ever set sail. This wasn't just another regional power, this was global economies beating heart. Then everything changed. The 1800s brought the Industrial Revolution to Europe and America. Steam engines, railways, factories, and most importantly, military technology that China couldn't match. When British warships came at Chinese ports with superior firepower, China had no choice but to give ground. That's how Britain got Hong Kong. What followed was what Chinese historians call the century of humiliation. Foreign powers carved up Chinese territory. The economy stagnated under outdated systems. By the time Mao Zedong took power, China had become a shadow of its former self. Mao's communist experiment made things worse. The Great Leap Forward killed up to 45 million people through famine. The Cultural Revolution destroyed what little economic progress remained. By the 1970s, China was one of the world's poorest countries, nearly a billion people living in poverty. That's when everything changed. Deng Xiaoping took power in 1978 with a simple philosophy. He didn't care if the cat was black or white, as long as it caught mice. He didn't care about ideology, he cared about results. Deng had watched neighboring Asian countries impress capitalism and prosper. South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore all were pulling ahead while China stagnated. He knew something had to change. But here's the challenge: how do you introduce capitalism to a communist country without losing political control? Deng's answer was brilliant in its simplicity. He picked one small fishing village in southern China, about 30,000 people living in rice paddies right across the border from British controlled Hong Kong. This village would become China's laboratory for capitalism. They called it a special economic zone. Foreign companies could invest there, market forces could operate freely. It was still officially socialist but with Chinese characteristics. What happened next was incredible. That little fishing village exploded into a metropolis of over 10 million people. In just 4 decades, average incomes went from $1 a day to over $30,000 a year. Think about that scale of transformation. We are talking about the fastest sustained economic expansion by a major economy in history. China was doubling its GDP every 8 years. Soon, special economic zones sprouted across China's coast. Foreign manufacturers flocked there for cheap labor and government incentives. China became the world's factory. Everything from iPhone to furniture started carrying that Made in China label. The numbers are staggering. Since 1979, China has lifted 800 million people out of poverty. That's more than the entire population of Europe. No country in history has improved living standards for so many people so quickly. But this miracle came with a price. Economists created something called the elephant graph to show who really benefited from China's rise and global capitalism. Picture an elephant silhouette and you will understand the shape of global inequality. The biggest winners, China's new middle class, saw their incomes grow by over 125% in 35 years. People who had been living in rural poverty suddenly had factory jobs, apartments, and opportunities their parents never dreamed of. The other big winners, the global elite, the richest 1% of people worldwide, saw their incomes triple during this same period. They owned the companies and capital that benefited from cheap Chinese manufacturing. But what about the middle class in America and Europe? Their income growth barely kept pace with inflation. Factory workers in Detroit and Rust Belt watched their jobs disappear to Chinese factories. Some saw their wages actually decline. This is the uncomfortable truth about globalization. It created massive wealth, but it didn't distribute that wealth evenly. China's rise lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty, but it also accelerated inequality in the developed world. China's rapid industrialization came with another price tag. They became the world's largest emitter of carbon dioxide. Chinese cities choked on smoke. The environmental damage was catastrophic. But here's where the story gets interesting again. China recognized the problem and started doing something about it. They declared a war on pollution and achieved remarkable results. Air pollution in major cities dropped by 27% between 2015 and 2019. More importantly, China became the world's leader in renewable energy. They are the largest producer of solar panels and electric vehicles. They drove down the global cost of solar energy by 80%. When China decides to tackle a problem, they don't mess around. This brings us to today's big question. What does China's success mean for the future of capitalism? For decades, Western economists preached that shareholder capitalism was the only way. Companies exist to maximize profits for shareholders. Everything else is secondary. But China's model suggests something different. Their state guided capitalism prioritizes long term development over short term profits. They invest in infrastructure, education, and strategic industries even when the immediate returns are not clear. This is starting to influence thinking worldwide. Major American companies like Apple, Walmart, and JP Morgan are moving towards what's called stakeholder capitalism. Instead of just serving shareholders, they are considering employees, customers, communities, and the environment. China's rise isn't just an economic story, it's reshaping global power dynamics. For the first time since World War II, America faces a genuine economic rival. This creates both opportunities and tensions. China is now America's largest trading partner, but also its biggest strategic competitor. They are building global infrastructure through the Belt and Road Initiative, extending their influence from Asia to Africa to Europe. The question isn't whether China will continue growing, it's whether the world can manage this transition peacefully. History shows that rising powers often clash with established ones, but it also shows that economic interdependence can create incentives for cooperation. China's transformation proves that rapid economic development is possible even in the most challenging circumstances. Countries across Africa, Latin America, and Asia are studying the Chinese model. But it also shows that economic growth without consideration for inequality and environmental impact creates its own problems. The challenge for any developing country is finding a balance between rapid growth and sustainable development. For the rest of us, China's rise means living in a multipolar world. American economic dominance is ending, not because America is declining, but because others are catching up. That creates both opportunities and uncertainties that will define the next several decades. The fishing village of Shenzhen changed the world. Its transformation from rural backwater to global metropolis in just 40 years represents perhaps the most remarkable economic achievement in human history. And we are still living with the consequences of that transformation today.